I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker of day 3, Silvana Accardo. Silvana is a graduate English teacher from Argentina, a tenured English teacher, and a kindergarten and primary coordinator. She holds a diploma in comprehensible sexuality education at Universidad de Buenos Aires and Universidad Nacional de San Martín. During Silvana's talk, we recommend watching in speaker view, and if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. Take away, please share your screen, Silvana.
Thank you so much, Maria Jesus. Well, I'll be sharing my screen now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, the Young Learners and Teenagers SIG. And I'm very happy and honored to be here with all of you, with all my colleagues. As Maria Jesus just mentioned, I'm an EFL teacher. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'm an advocate for representation and equality and diversity in the classroom. So this is my talk, tips for including representation and diversity in primary ELT. And let's begin thinking, how can we ensure inclusion and diversity in the primary EFL classroom? Because as educators, we have a social responsibility to promote respect towards all people and to create more inclusive, fairer, and safer learning environments to all our students. So how can this be achieved in a primary level in the EFL classroom? So in this talk, we'll go through a selection of effective tips that will help early career teachers to adopt a human rights and gender perspective based framework in their lessons. And I will take you through 3 moments. First, I'm going to address some key concepts that I just mentioned, a human rights perspective and gender perspective. Then why including diversity and representation. And finally, how, some tips and ideas. So first of all, what do we talk about when we talk about a human rights and gender perspective? Well, according to Amnesty International, human rights can give schools around the world a shared language of equality, non-discrimination, inclusion, respect, dignity, and participation that is crucial to the goal of achieving a more peaceful and just global society. And in education, through human rights, we teachers can pass the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that can foster an atmosphere in which all members of the community understand, value, and protect human rights. Now, by doing this, by teaching human rights from a very young age, we start molding attitudes and supporting policies of participation, equality, respect, and non-discrimination. Now going to gender perspective. Well, this is a quote from the European Institute for Gender Equality, where gender perspective is defined as the perspective that takes into account gender differences when looking at any social phenomenon, policy, or process. Now, in the classroom, we have to think how to promote equality, and gender perspective, it's an approach that helps us promote equality, examine unequal relations, provide equal opportunities and participation to all our students in our classes, to better design projects that cater for everyone's interests, and to avoid gender gaps among our students. So teaching with a gender perspective also stimulates students' critical thinking capacity, providing them with new tools to identify social stereotypes, norms, and roles related to gender and to problematize these issues. Now, our second step, why is it important to include representation and diversity in your lessons? If you want to answer this question in the chat box, you are more than welcome. So I'll be reading your thoughts. And of course, I say that representation matters and a lot. And according to Henry Giroux, education, it's a democratic sphere. So children enter into the classroom as public citizens, and they are experiencing living in society with others. So we should try to reflect a wider society. Schools are key to socializing, preparing learners to become active and engaged members of society. Let's see your answers. I see that the chat is active. So all our students feel included and important. Absolutely, yes. So the presence of representation promotes equality. Our students see themselves and others as equals and learn to appreciate diversity. It has a direct effect on students' self-esteem and subjectivity. This is how they see themselves and how their personalities grow and form. So it helps foster empathy, understanding, respect, and citizenship values. Let's see the chat again. Good. Now, the presence of diversity and representation helps students recognize that there are supportive educators at school. So we show our allyship through supportive actions. Just knowing that there is a supportive educator at school can help LGBTQI+ students feel safer and better about being at school. So now we come to part number 3 of this talk. So I will take you through some tips and ideas how to go about it. Well, one activity that generally we do at the beginning of the year, we prepare a worksheet with information to get to know each other. That's typical about you worksheet. So let's include it. Let's create a more inclusive getting to know you worksheet. Ask your students how they prefer to be named. Include pronouns, he, she, they, which pronouns they choose or they prefer to be addressed. Ask them who they live with. And remember that families come in all sizes and shapes. Not all your students live with mom and dad. Maybe they live with an aunt, an uncle, grandparents. And also bear in mind that asking them where they live or to describe their house is not always an easy topic for our students, especially for our students that belong to lower social classes. This is something that when they try to share, they compare, and we have to bear in mind that they don't live in the house car and 4 or 5 bedrooms. Another way to start is to start checking your own bias. Let's see, I'm going to ask you these questions and think if you answer yes or no. And if you have these practices or if you experience these things when you were a student at school. Do you have stereotyping practices at school? Have you ever complimented boys on their speed, strength, or intelligence, and girls on their beauty, appearance, or tidiness? What do you value there? Have you ever said to a child that they could not choose a toy, a role, a sport, or a game to play because of their gender? Maybe they wanted to act on a play or use the dress-up corner and use a specific costume, maybe a princess, and Did you say yes? Did you say no? How you looked at your student at that moment? Do you encourage all children to talk about their feelings? Do you say, for example, to a boy, don't cry, that they shouldn't cry, that they shouldn't express their feelings, for example? Now, how to go about this? Try to use gender-neutral adjectives, just as adventurous, resilient, strong, kind, persistent, compassionate, hardworking for all your students. Encourage all children to have a voice, to speak up in class discussions without judgment. You are creating a more democratic space and they feel heard. Make sure all genders participate in active and outdoor play and feel safe to use common play spaces such as playgrounds. Sometimes we see boys running around and girls just staying on the corners of the playground. So let's create also a more democratic use of these spaces. More tips. Well, literature. I just love books. I love literature. And as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So when you use visuals, you can trigger discussions and criticality in your students. Picture books are a great tool to work in class. And visuals are excellent to complement textbooks and to show students different perspectives and possibilities. As you can see in my picture books there. And now let's wear rainbow. You all to wear rainbow glasses just for a moment. Just to see life through gender perspective. Look at this picture. This was taken from a book. Where is the woman and what is she doing? What's the message here in this picture, in this activity? I'll read you in the chat box. What do you think when you encounter this image in a book? Is there an underlying message? That women should stay in the kitchen? Okay, good, collaboration. We have two sides of the same picture. We can see stereotypes on one side, the one in the kitchen, patriarchal mandate, exactly. Stereotype role, yes. The woman's place is in the kitchen. And on the other side, we can see girls playing. But what about the boy also? What is the boy doing? So we can analyze this using our criticality. Now, what about this one? You can also use the chat box. What about this picture? What can you see there? I'll read you in the chat box. Inclusivity, socializing, yes. The picture includes diversity, right. Multicultural environment, yes. All sorts of families, yes. Different types of families. Diversity, ethnicity, yes, absolutely. All types of families and children. Children with disabilities, yes. There's representation, all are welcome. Sexual identities, yes. The real world, right. Absolutely. So what happens if you include pictures like this in your class? When you are dealing with household chores or jobs and occupations, sports, outdoor activities. What if girls see other girls being scientists, or a boy is taking care of a baby, just changing diapers, learning how to take care of another person? So yes, we are breaking stereotypes. We are dismantling gender stereotypes. Well, I'm so sorry, Mauricio, to read that, because this is the real world. I think boys should learn how to take care of other people. So check if your textbooks and worksheets include equal representation, especially when working with online downloadable material. So you have to be mindful of the biases and representation. Maybe you have to reread and take a look at what you are using in your lessons or downloading. This is a personal experience. A teacher at the school where I work and where I coordinate wrote an activity about jobs and occupations. And it was a lovely activity because it had riddles. But one of the riddles said, I'm a woman, I don't work, I clean the house, and there was a fourth clue. And there's an underlying message there. Housework is work. Now, the power of books. Imagine a library full of rainbows, mirrors, doors, windows, and representation, because literary material can work as a tool to include representation, diversity in your lessons. Books offer windows and doors to the world, and mirrors where our students can see themselves reflected and represented. So the use of literature in the classroom develops linguistic skills, expands intercultural and personal awareness. It broadens our students' views of the world. It nourishes readers' creativity, imagination, and empathy. And it brings valuable, authentic material and rich linguistic input. I should have added that I'm an advocate for literature and books at the beginning. Now, according to Garley, this is from a paper, she says that the school library has a unique opportunity to support a safe learning environment and provide a more accurate representation of the diversity of the world through LGBTQI+ inclusion. So imagine a library full of colors and possibilities, because if you can see it, you can be it. These are some of the references that I've included in this talk. You could see that I included Carly, the role of the school library, and I will share you also my email where you can ask me for this presentation, and I will gladly share with all of you where you have this all these tools, all these tips, and the references that I used for the talk. So this is the end, but if we have questions, please you write your questions in the Q&A box. You can find me in Instagram, you can write down my email, and I also can share with you literary material that you can use in your lessons. And I would like to thank you, Dario, that he mentioned me according to my the paper that I wrote. I work at a private school, a Catholic private school, and another private school. So the initiatives that are included in that paper where they took place, one during the pandemic, so online classes at a Catholic school, and the other one at another private school in Buenos Aires.
Silvana, we got 3 questions in the Q&A box.
Thank you. Let's see if I can take a look at the pictures and the questions. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. In my society, it is difficult to change men's attitudes towards doing or even helping in housework. How could you be able to do so? Well, I think it's something that goes step by step, definitely. And I would say that maybe if you ask and students share their own house experiences, maybe they actually help. So maybe it's they don't say it, but they actually do housework or help at home. And by sharing other pictures, other perspectives, other possibilities, maybe there's a door there that could open. But it's something that goes little by little. So we have to give the possibilities and show students other possibilities, absolutely. So we can create a safer and more equal society, global society for all our students, for everyone. Yes, absolutely. I can recommend some books. So if you write to me, I can send you, I have a list of books. They are separated according to level and topics. So I will gladly share it with all of you. You can maybe look for them, read them, and hopefully bring them to your lessons. Well, thank you. Well, I think the question is, how do parents react? I think parents and families should be included in this. So what we generally do is to let them know about the projects we are carrying out throughout the year. Include families, maybe sharing what we're going to read, do something together with the families, and we work with projects. So we bring all this material and perspectives together with our textbooks. So if we are working with toys, if we are working with clothes, or we are working with outdoor activities, we bring another possibilities. Maybe a woman pilot from Emirates, an interview, pictures, so they see another possibility. And generally, there are no issues with parents. As Dario mentioned before, we have a law that it's a comprehensive sexuality education law here in Argentina. All these contents are included in our curricular guidelines. So this is something that students work with their classroom teachers. So also there's always some kind of resistance. We can find them in parents, but given the space and the talk, I think it opens doors, because sometimes they don't know. They hear the word, they're working with CSE and comprehensive sexuality education and this and that, and maybe they have their own picture. And when they realize what it is, this resistance is like this barrier, this wall that was built, it goes down. So communication is absolutely important. Of course, the support of your institution and your project. I know what we are working. So this is something that you have to take into account as well. Well, thank you. And I have one more question. I don't know if other countries have similar laws. We have this law from 2006, but it's taken a lot of time. We are still working on it and including it on a national level. So imagine we have a law and we're still working on this. So it's a very interesting question to know if there are laws around the world that include this. But what we have, it's work done by UNESCO, and there are guidelines, and also there are some handbooks So I think there are things that we could read, material that we can find that they have a global perspective as well. Any other question? Thank you. Yes,
there is
I think
more question.
Yes. Oh, there it is. Well, I think you mentioned lower secondary. Here in Argentina, we start from kindergarten level throughout primary, lower secondary, secondary, and teacher training college. So it should be included throughout all the educational proposals and all the levels as well. So I think, as the question is there an appropriate age to teach children sexuality education? There's not an appropriate age, there are appropriate contents. So these contents develop throughout all our guidelines and all our curriculum, and they are like, they develop different topics as the children grow up. So we say that they have to include trustworthy, clear content, and age-appropriate content. So they start from very, very little in kindergarten with taking care of their own bodies. For example, consent, how to say no, limits, and so on and so forth. And these, there's a complexity that grows throughout our curriculum.
Okay, thank you very much, Silvana. Of this presentation, in this presentation, we can see the relevance of representation and how we can create a safe environment so everyone, every child could feel welcome.